Hello and welcome to my latest video of interviews with exceptionally well-performing SBL students whom I've had the pleasure of working with. Now, today I'm so excited to be talking to Vikki Sims. She's a bit of a star, actually. Well, no, she's not a bit, she's a lot of a star. She's won highest marks, national prize, not for one, but for two subjects. So let me just get it right, in September 2023, she got the highest marks in Australia for AAA. And then in December, when she sat SBL after having trained with me, she got the highest marks in SBL in Australia. So she seems to be making a habit of earning national prizes. So I'm so happy to, that she took the time to come and chat with us and tell us a little bit about her journey and also the challenges she faced. And the hope is that students who watch this kind of get some inspiration from Vikki, because she is inspirational. So I'll shut up for a change and let Vikki do the talking from here on in. So Vikki, welcome, and thanks for taking the time to join us.
Thanks, Ashim.
It's a pleasure. So Vikki, tell us a little bit about, first of all, your ACCA journey, right? When did you start? How quickly you moved through stuff? How you prepared? Whatever comes to mind, we'd love to hear.
Sure. Well, I actually started ACCA. I was living in London, and it was my now husband who was the person who really encouraged me to start. I was working in like assistant accountant positions, and had no qualification, and he was the one who said to me, "Come on, do ACCA." So I guess I'm eternally grateful to him for being the person to really give me that push to start. So I think I actually started it in probably 2008, just after my husband and I met, and that's when I started. And I kind of moved through those first 6 papers quite quickly, and I was doing it in like attending classes after work in London, and then sitting the exams in the exam centres in London. And then in 2010, I got pregnant with my daughter, and we got married, and then I got pregnant, and then we moved to Australia. And that's when ACCA kind of stopped, because life was very busy, and I wasn't working, and I just kind of stopped. And I did think about it after, maybe when my daughter was 2, I started thinking I'd really like to finish that. But at that time, so ACCA isn't a very popular qualification to study in Australia. They only do CPA or CA. They're the 2 main ones. And so, first of all, the first hurdle I was facing in Australia was how to study. And at that time would have been like 2012, wasn't too much remote stuff that I found. And then even sitting the exams, I would have had to have flown to Sydney or Melbourne to sit the exams, which was this another added cost away from my family. And I just put it in the too hard bucket. It was just too hard. And then in 20, I had my son, and then we actually moved countries for my husband's work in 2017, and we did 3 years overseas. And then when we came back to Australia in the COVID pandemic, because we had to leave the country we were living in, and I got my job, one of my old jobs back. And it was when I was there I started thinking I'd really like to finish this. And so that would have been 2021. So I had a big gap between the last exam and when I picked it back up again. And so I called the ACCA, and they were happy for me to continue, considering the reasons for my kind of big gap. And that's when I called the ACCA, and I was like, how can I study this? And they explained to me that, one, I could sit exams remotely, which was a game changer for me. I was like, excellent, I can do it I don't have to fly anywhere. And then my next challenge was obviously, who was I going to study through? I was very nervous about studying online, because I thought I was going to be unmotivated, and I thought that I was going to not feel supported. And but they told me about FME Learn Online, and they said they were a platinum approved provider. Yep. And so I looked into them, and it was my first two exams were audit and assurance with Erin and FM with Sunil. And so I signed up with them, and what was great was straight away when I first expressed an interest, both of them did a meeting with me, a WhatsApp, just to chat me through, talk, and kind of start to ease some of my fears about online learning and that kind of stuff. And yeah, so then I was like, oh no, I think I can do this. And they were absolutely brilliant as for my first two tutors. They were just amazing. And that the model of FME for having their pre-recorded stuff, but then that personal support via the WhatsApp made all the difference to my learning.
Right. So, of course, there's so much to unpick there, Vikki, in what you said. So I want to come back to the two tutors you mentioned. They are, of course, stars, and they represent the philosophy of FME. And now I'm actually with AMA, which is a sister platform. But the philosophy has remained the same, which is that is a very, very personal interest in each and every student, so you're not just left alone, left to your own devices to prepare. All of my colleagues, want to get engaged, want to be involved with you personally. I think it makes a huge difference, and I love being part of that team for that reason. But let's go back a bit, because goodness me, it's been a journey, isn't it? Again, we started in 2008?
Yes.
Right? 15 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And then you had these unavoidable gaps. You moved countries, I don't know, God knows, 3 times, 4 times in that time. You had children, of course, young children, which forced you to kind of put studies on the back burner for a few years. And then, of course, you didn't have the facilities for preparing for those exams when you did decide to go back. So what was it? You had these breaks, right? What was it that gave you the motivation to go back?
Honestly?
Honestly, of course.
My company demoted me because I wasn't fully qualified.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I just was so annoyed. And it wasn't just they paid me less and they demoted me.
Right.
And I was like, that's it. I've had enough.
Right.
I'm going to get fully qualified, and then they'll either put me on the proper banding or I'll find another job. Right. That was it. It was to be honest, it was good though. It was the kick that I needed.
Yeah.
But that was what it was.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because there's so many students who hear about the ACCA qualification and they think, yeah, well, it sounds good, but this isn't for me. I don't see myself as an accountant. And I was certainly in exactly the same position. I didn't see myself as an accountant. I put accountant in inverted commas because it doesn't really mean what it used to mean, let's say 10 or 20 or 30 years ago. It's much more a strategic role today. And then, you get this incentive, this motivation, this impetus to actually, continue. When you pass through the first 6 subjects in the UK, yes, is that correct?
Yeah, that's right.
And you had no problems. You passed them all first time. How did you prepare for those?
So I passed them all first time. How I used to go to one of I was BPP, so I used to go to the BPP classes. Then I'd study at home using the exam kits. And to be honest, I was very lucky because my husband actually he qualified ICAS, Institute of Chartered Accountants Scotland, years ago. Like he tell you it was a lifetime ago.
Right.
But he's very clever and he remembers everything. And I would be crying to him because I didn't understand it. And I was someone, I would never ask questions in any of my classes.
Hmm.
And at that time, if you wanted to speak to your tutor, you had to kind of, did you have to phone them? And then, oh, it was really, and I would never do it.
Right.
It was quite a, so I did it, I feel like I did it with no support. It was only myself and my husband helping me. And I think if he hadn't have helped me, I would have really struggled.
Right.
Just,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is also so important, isn't it, to have the support of family
yeah,
through this journey, because being on your own doing it is not easy, especially when you're being pulled in so many directions,
yeah,
professionally and personally. So your husband's clearly been a strong influence on your journey. And he
yes.
must be over the moon that you qualified, and not just qualified, but qualified so brilliantly.
Yes, I think so. I think he's, yeah, very proud. And
Yeah.
but like I said, I did rely on him a lot in those
Mm.
first few. And that was one of the reasons that I couldn't study early, like later on, was when I said to my husband when the kids were little and I was like, what about going back? I said, but I've got to have your support again. And his role was such that he
Mm.
traveled all the time. And he's like,
Mm.
I can't give you that same support that I gave you when we were in London.
Right.
And then I felt I can't do it without you,
Mm.
so it
Mm.
was this really difficult situation. But like I said, once I got into the model of the online model, it changed my view of studying, and I felt so supported. And there's something you said which I absolutely loved: you're
Mm.
independent but not alone.
Yeah.
And that really rang true with me, because that's exactly how I felt.
Right, right. Yeah, I think that's really important to kind of understand that there's
Yeah,
always someone who's got your back.
yeah,
And as you say, your husband traveled a lot, but he was still available remotely. And it made me smile because I remember, when we were discussing some of your tests and your questions that you had done. I remember you saying, well, I talked to my husband, and he helped me with this and he helped me with that, and it made me smile. That he was so engaged in the process, even though he was in a different country at the time.
yeah. He's excellent to bounce
Mm,
ideas off, and that's
really,
and what was nice was because I had the support of the tutors
yeah,
to ask questions. I wasn't relying on him to help me understand anything anymore. I could just discuss with him ideas, big picture stuff.
right,
Um, and like even with some of the more technical papers like AFM,
yeah,
I could talk to him about the things I was studying, and he at least he understood it. Like he
mm,
didn't have to teach me
right,
anything. I
right.
could just talk ideas, and he didn't even have to say anything. He could just go, "Oh yeah," mhm," but he knew what I was talking about.
Yes, yes, yeah. He got it. He got it.
Yeah, and I
Oh,
think
that's
he's
wonderful.
he's
Mm.
glad I'm finished. I think he's a bit he's a bit over talking about SBL. Like I made him read all like the papers for SBL when we got
Yeah,
the pre-scene. So I think he's happy. We've finished.
yeah. I'll bet. I'll bet. Now he's got some free time for the both of you now, just for
Yeah.
you. So you have two children. How old
Yep.
are they?
They're 10 and 13 now.
Okay, so they were born, as you said earlier, right in the middle of your ACCA journey.
Yep.
How did you cope with them when they were so young? I mean, you said you took a break, right? Then what
Yeah.
changed that
You know what?
allowed you?
I am in awe of ladies who can study with small children,
Yeah,
because I think that is next level. Because I know for me, when my kids were little, once they were down for bed, that was me done. I
right,
couldn't do anymore. So when I started studying again, they would have been 8 and 11.
right,
And because they were 8 and 11, they were older. So they could go on their devices, and I'd let them have screen time while I studied,
right.
and they were brilliant and they wouldn't interrupt me. And that's what made the difference for me, was their ages. I could not have done it when they were younger.
No, no, because they need so much attention, don't they? And
Yeah,
school runs and all kinds of activities that they get involved in.
sure. Yeah.
So how I mean, how do they take to mum constantly, especially just before the exams, um, studying?
Well, to be honest, my son loved it because it meant he got extra screen time.
Okay, mum's out the way now.
Yeah, they would like, oh, you're studying this weekend, because they knew that that meant they got extra screen time. So they didn't mind it. And as it got that month before the exam, when the studying really ramped up, I was great. I had the support of my mum in Australia, and also a couple of friends
Right,
who would take the kids so they weren't on screens like all day, every weekend type
right.
thing. So I was very lucky that even though my husband, because he works away, like he would work away weeks at a time.
Hmm.
So I relied on my mum and friends, and I
Wonderful.
couldn't have done it without them. Well, I
Yeah,
could have, but I would have felt like such a terrible mum that I was just letting my kids go on their screens
right,
the
right.
entire weekend.
Yeah, again, we see the importance of network, right? Family network, friend network,
Yeah,
that that can support you through this quite challenging
yeah,
time. And again, it's I think that's an important lesson for all students who are going through
yeah,
this. That they should talk to their family and their friends and say, look, this is what I'm facing, and would you help me out a bit here? And I think they would probably find the answer would be yes. What can
yeah.
we do?
But,
Um,
but in saying that, I must say, the the kids seeing me study, I think, has actually been great for them. My
mm,
daughter, particularly, she's the one who's 13. When came and I told her I topped Australia in the two exams, she was so excited, and she was so proud of me. And I think that it was good to show her, and my son,
yeah,
that, you know, just, I don't know, it was just good for them to see.
yeah, I'm sure it was very inspirational. My mum's brilliant. It's great. But it's true, right? It's true. So okay, so now let's come to professional stage, strategic professional stage. Now, AAA, you did that as I said before, in September of 2023,
Yeah.
just before you did SBL in December with me. So what was it about AAA's experience for you that made you such a star performer, do you think?
I think it's just the focus on exam technique.
Right.
It's that is the key. And I think we've spoken about it, that it's very difficult to pass these exams if you are just self-studying,
Right.
because the key to these exams is exam technique.
Yeah.
You've got to have the knowledge, and you've got to have um, the 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 breadth of thinking, but it's exam technique.
Yeah.
Um,
I
and
think,
if you
sorry, go on.
I was going to say, if you do that, that's just what makes the difference.
Yeah. Yeah. There's no doubt about it. I mean, and I think a lot of students, and tell me if you disagree with this, but a lot of students face a completely different approach to strategic level exams than they've needed to use in the earlier papers. Would you agree with that?
Um, I I think my approach was similar for all of them.
Hmm.
Because I guess there was more mock exams for the strategic ones, but I only did two non-strategic exams with FME.
Right.
I can't really remember. I mean, so I guess I passed the first exams without the same preparation as the others, the ones
Right.
in, and that was okay. I guess if you're thinking about it like that, I would not have been able to pass my strategic papers if I'd had used the same exam preparation that I did in London.
Right.
But I used the same preparation for um, a audit and FME
Yeah.
that I did through the rest.
Right.
But I would say that my approach to audit and FME was different to all my other non-strategic papers. So
FM, you mean? Yeah, financial management.
yeah, FM, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah. Okay, so that's the preparation side of things. I was talking about, when you get to strategic level, everything you've studied thus far is assumed knowledge. Now is your opportunity to bring it all together. And it's less about showing off your knowledge and more about how you're integrating your knowledge with lots of other stuff like commercial judgment to
Yes.
create an answer. That's
Yeah.
what I meant.
Oh, sure.
You know, so tell us about your SBL experience. This is a really exciting bit for me. So tell us about SBL. I mean, okay, we signed up, we had a chat, and well, how did you feel about it at the beginning?
I found it really tricky at the beginning
Mhm.
because I felt like I wasn't putting in enough work at the beginning.
Right.
In the tuition phase, I felt like I just felt like I wasn't doing enough work. I'm used to, I guess, writing more notes on my like little palm cards, and yeah, and so I was like, how am I going to pass this exam if I don't have enough knowledge? And yeah, so I'd say I struggled and freaked out a bit at first
Yeah.
because I was like, I don't know enough.
I do remember, actually, I do remember you reaching out to me a few occasions and saying, oh, I've covered this, but I feel a bit lost and I don't know how to deal with this.
Yeah.
And then we'd have a chat, wouldn't we? Quite often about that. But then things changed for you. What changed?
Once we got into the mocks and once we got into the case studies,
Right.
and we just started doing the exam practice.
Hmm.
That's what changed.
And how,
Just
so,
doing the
sorry, go on.
just doing the questions, doing the questions.
Yeah, yeah, it is. I mean, I know, most students will have heard this 100 times before, that doing the questions is the key for any examination. And I
Yep,
think that applies, multiple times for SBL because you've really got to get your head around the structure and expectations of the
yep,
exams, which again are quite unusual because
yep,
you've got the case study, haven't you?
yep.
So here you are, you're faced with the questions. You've got your husband at the ready, right? With some advice and guidance and just someone to listen to, I suppose.
Yep.
Um, uh, so, so what was it in doing the questions that kind of brought it all together for you?
Um, gosh, I don't.
Because a lot of students say, well, this is when I kind of I got the idea, right, of SBL, which is not just about technical knowledge. It's about application, it's about communication, it's about commercial judgment, and mixing it
Yeah,
all together and then communicating it in a way that fits with your audience's requirements. And that's what a lot of students say. Did you find the same?
yes, probably. I mean, I think it was just once you reading the case study, and um, sorry, that's my son.
That's okay, don't worry about it. Yeah. He's coming back
Read
to school, is he?
Yes, and I said to my daughter, I'm doing a call. Make sure it's Rory, I'm on a recorded call, please. Sorry.
Say hello to Roy from us.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I think it was just once I started doing those questions, but I had to do them multiple times. Like, so that first mock that I did,
Yeah.
I mean, I think I got like 30 odd percent. And that was fine. And I wasn't disappointed by that because I knew that this was the first time I was trying to put it all together
Right.
and understand how to do it in a way that the marker wanted.
Yeah.
And once I
Mhm.
got that feedback, that then helped me work on it the next time, the next time, the next time. And that's
Right.
the process of doing it, debriefing it, understanding where you went or where you could have got extra marks and how
Yeah.
you could have thought differently, and then build on that each time.
Right. Now that's such an important point and that's exactly the reason that at the end of the tuition course, I set the first mock exam. Up until then, of course, you've had very little exposure to actually practicing past exams.
Yeah.
So this is your first shot at it. And as we discussed, both individually and in group meetings, the whole idea of the first mock is to do exactly what you've just described, right? To kind of understand where your gaps are and how to address them. And then, of course, your performance in the subsequent mock exams improved exponentially. So how much, I mean, you know, you're a member of the WhatsApp group, right, for
Yep.
our this particular sitting. How much of how useful did you find that?
The WhatsApp, I mean, the WhatsApp is great,
Hmm.
just for when you've got questions and that immediate response. Because what I found is when you're studying and you're in the middle of something and you have a question, you need an answer quite
Right,
quick. Otherwise, you can't move on.
right.
Or you move on and then you have another question and then you start accumulating questions and then they come back and you've lost your train of thought.
Yeah.
But for me, that instant kind of response and reply,
Hmm.
that was crucial.
Right. Yeah, it's a great point actually, Vikki, because you have something at the back of your mind, right? And okay, you move on, as you say, and then but it stays there. It's niggly, right? So you can't focus 100% because
Exactly.
there's something I don't get here, you know?
Yeah.
And immediately it kind of, yeah, makes you feel less confident about what
Yes.
to do subsequently. And so this immediacy that the WhatsApp group provides, and you know, you're not alone in saying this, Vikki. A lot of students have said exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
It's so important to them.
It allows you to move on,
Yeah, right.
and without it, you get a bit stuck.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. You know, mentally and emotionally, you get
Yeah.
stuck, and that, of course, is reflected in what you do next. So here we are. You've been through the revision course. You know, you've sat another 2 mock exams. You've received feedback and so on. How did you feel about the exam at that stage?
At that stage, I was still freaking out because I didn't feel like my mock exam scores were going up at the rate I would hope them to. And I
Hmm.
just feel like I'd look at the markers' comments and I'd compare them I just felt, yeah, just felt like I just still didn't feel like I got it.
Right. Yeah. 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 It's another thing, you know, that a lot of students say that, you know, I just, yeah, you know, I was still a bit scared. It might be, you know, I was still not getting my 50% in the mock exams. And
Yeah.
but one thing I always say to them, and I think I probably said it to you as well, that I'm actually quite, you know, tough, or my marker is anyway, when it comes to giving marks.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that that's a double-edged sword, right? On the one hand, being tough kind of encourages students to improve the quality of the answers, and the other hand, it might
Sure.
demotivate them, you know, when they say, well, you know, I worked so hard and I'm still not getting 50%. Um, but luckily, in your case, of course, it was the first of those two.
Yeah.
And not only did it motivate you, it motivated you, it catapulted you, I'll use that word, to first place in Australia. So when you came out the exam, how do you feel you'd done?
Um, I actually felt good when I came out the exam. I felt that there was a couple of areas that I felt not as strong in
Right.
because the pre-scene was like the worst pre-scene for me ever. I mean, I know we discussed this because I am not IT minded at all, and it was
Right.
cloud computing, and it was just not my wheelhouse at
Yeah.
all. So that
Yeah.
was a big issue for me.
Hmm.
Just that. But anyway, so there was a couple of things that I felt I probably wasn't as strong on because I didn't have enough, not that you need technical knowledge of the industry, but I didn't have even base level knowledge of the
Right.
industry.
Right. Right.
But so there was a couple of areas I felt a bit weak in, but I felt that some areas I did okay. So I felt like I did okay, but then that worries me because then I go, but I felt like I did okay on that mock and I actually didn't pass it, and I
Yeah.
second
Yeah.
guess myself.
Yeah. 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 I mean, look, this is of course very normal. I mean, you know that better than most. You know, there's always a question mark when you complete an
Yeah,
examination. You know, you think, well, I think it was okay, but, or I
yeah,
think that was terrible, but who knows? You know, so that always happens. Yeah, and So you, okay, actually, I just want to go back to the exam itself. What were your biggest challenges? Was it time? Was it understanding the question? Was it analyzing the question? What did you find the most difficult and the easiest, if you like?
Um, no, I feel that the time management was okay because that's one of the exam techniques that
Right.
is drilled into you. You
Hmm.
work out your marks, minutes per mark, and you just I was quite rigorous, religious in sticking to that. Like I
Great.
just was like that's it. I just move on. Um, I think I found the hardest part is sometimes just thinking of things.
Right.
Um, like yeah, like I know one of them they were talking about like the risks and things that you could do and around security for this for and that was I remember thinking that was hard because it was hard for me to think in that time frame of what I could do.
Right. Right. Yeah. But that's normal, right? In any
Yeah,
exam, for all students, that there will never be a single exam which students will come out of and say every single question on there felt very comfortable with. I mean, it's
yeah,
um, but as we discussed, it's all about giving the whole exam paper a fair shot of your
yeah,
time, and that's where the time discipline comes in.
yeah,
And clearly, that was what kind of got you, gave you the opportunity, or you took the opportunity to attempt every question. So yeah, so brilliant. So okay, so how you got the results, right? You were told by the ACCA, top marks in Australia. What happened then? What happened when? Do you remember when you learned about it? And what you did next?
I don't know, probably started telling my husband, telling my mum.
Right. Uh,
Just
you say earlier your children were so proud of you as well, right?
yes, yeah. So yeah,
Yeah.
I ran upstairs and told my daughter.
Yeah, yeah, wonderful. Okay, so now you've got. I mean, I was amazed because you shared on on the WhatsApp group that you've actually put in all of your professional experience requirements and you got affiliate status.
Yep.
You did that in about 5 minutes flat after after you got the results, which was great because a lot of students, myself included, kind of let it drag and drag and but you did it, but you wanted to get it out the way. You wanted to move on to the next stage of your life, which is what at the moment?
So currently I'm back overseas with my husband's work,
Right. Right.
and the country we're in means that I can't work for the moment, which
Right.
is so frustrating
Yeah.
considering I've just and starting it in the UK where whatever company you're working for they support you.
Right.
In Australia it's different, and where I self-funded the whole rest of my studies.
Wow.
And so then and then I finish and I can't work. So I'm like, that's a little annoying. But on the other hand, we're only in this assignment for 12 months.
Okay.
And I don't see this as a bad thing because it probably took me close to or 18 bit over 18 months to finish my last 6 exams.
Right.
And my husband was working overseas. The kids had 2 kids, young. They're not little, but they're still young.
Yeah.
And I worked part time, and I was studying.
Right.
So I've had a pretty busy couple of years. So I don't mind so much taking a little bit of a breather
No, I'm sure
for
you did.
for a year, and then I'm really looking forward um, to getting a job when I get back to Australia,
Sure.
and actually getting a job where I can contribute and use some of the skills I've learned from with my ACCA studies. It's funny, the job that I was doing when I started back studying, what I've learned actually doesn't make any difference to the job that I was doing because I was
Right.
already working as a financial accountant. However, I can honestly say it's made me a better accountant
Mm-hmm.
all around, even though it hasn't actually affected my day-to-day work that I do in this role. I'm a much better accountant all round, and I'm looking forward to using some more of those skills and yeah, in another job.
Yeah. Well, whatever you choose to do, I'm sure you'll be excellent at it, no doubt. But also, what, certainly a lot of people say is that having the qualification opens up the doors. So if you want to go into something that's not pure financial accounting or pure management accounting, you can. I mean, that's one of the things about SBL, for example, where you start
Yeah,
have strategic thinking, and you kind of move up in the organizational structure. And like many ACCAs, of course, affiliates and members start up their own little businesses, their own consultancies, and so on. So lots of options open.
yeah.
To you.
And I look forward to actually having those options. It was
Yeah.
only being part qualified always made getting a job a bit tricky because in
Right.
Australia as well, they don't, you're either qualified or you're not. Like
Right.
in London, when I lived in London, it was different. When you're part qualified and you're studying, they accept that, and it doesn't really affect things, and because they see the path you're going on. Whereas in Australia, it was always a bit of a barrier.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, like you say, being fully qualified opens a lot more doors for me now.
No, it's absolutely true. I think also, of course, with the ACCA being a UK qualification, people understand what part qualified means, and they can, in the UK, and they recognise that even as a part qualified, there's a lot you can offer
Yeah.
to organisations. So, I mean, I could chat on like this with you forever, Vikki, but I know your children are back from school. Before we wrap up, tell me, if there's someone, a student listening to this, what would you say to them to kind of get them excited and motivated, and to overcome the challenges that are inevitable on the journey? What would you say based on your experience?
I think based on my experience, and this is just the type of person I am,
Mm,
it's just have a plan in your head. You don't have to even write it down. Get a plan in your head. So for me, um, you know, I had a chat with Sunil actually right from the beginning with FM, and I was like, "What am I doing? What do I do with my strategic?" And he's like, "Right, you're doing AA and FM now. It
yeah,
makes sense to do AFM straight after FM,
right.
do SBR before you do triple A, and then do SBL." And
Yeah,
so right from the beginning, he helped me set out a plan,
right.
and that's what I stuck to. And so
Yeah,
I just had that in my head, and I knew when I was going to sit my exams, and then I broke it down. So then I focused on one at a time, and I just, and you always know the month before the exam,
yeah,
that's your big revision month. So make sure that your tuition is always finished before that last month. And it's just being quite organized in your head to know what milestones you need to hit, and just ensure that you hit them. And then that's what's going to give you success.
yeah. That's brilliant advice, Vikki. Actually, brilliant, because once you've set your targets, your milestones, then you kind of your mind starts working on, right, what do I need to get in place, yeah, to
Yeah.
give me the time to study and to pass the exam at this sitting and so on. And as somehow you manage, right? You organize things, you talk to people, you decide how you're going to prepare and when you're going to prepare, and
Yeah.
all of this, and that gets you to where you want to be. Is brilliant advice. So thanks for sharing, and I hope it adds value. I'm sure it will, actually, to anyone who's still studying for the exams. Unfortunately, we're going to have to end it there. I'm sure, and I'm also sure that on behalf of everyone, that they will want to congratulate you on your performance. Not just one national prize, but two. I mean, that's really extraordinary, and wish you every success in the future. Thanks for taking the time, Vikki, to
No
share
worries.
your experience with us.
Thanks, Ashim.
Take care. Bye now.
Bye.
Okay.